We'll all see the building of the third temple in Jerusalem very soon. And we honor our President Trump for what he has done for Jerusalem and for the Jewish people.
So we have the priest, we have the red heifer, we have the land, and we have everything ready.
Ideas are becoming a reality.
Temple Institute and the Sanhedrin have been actively preparing for the construction of the third temple in Jerusalem. In this video, you can see they are discussing the location where to build the third temple. Some Jewish rabbis suggest building the third temple next to the Dome of the Rock. This is well supported by Israel Minister of Defense saying a synagogue should be built next to Al-Aqsa Mosque so that the Jews can also pray, not just Muslim. But the Temple Institute officials who have been preparing the third temple construction believe that the third temple must be built where the first and the second temple once stood. That is exactly on the Temple Mount. Jews have been digging tunnels under the Al-Aqsa Mosque compound since the early 1980s to find remains of the second temple and prepare for the third temple. They've dug 64 tunnels, with many on the western side, putting the mosque at risk of collapse. This has really worried Muslims and international observers, who fear that continued digging could cause the mosque to collapse. Jews believe that if they were allowed, they could build the third temple in less than a month. So, why haven't they started? The simple reason is that it's not safe and secure. They fear that if they build it now, it could be destroyed again, just like the first and second temples. They want the third temple to last forever. But before that, they need to eliminate any threats to the Jewish state and the temple. Right now, they're fighting for their rights and their temple. Listen to this army explain their wishes and ambitions.
And one day our true leader will come and we'll be united as a whole Jewish nation so we can rebuild the Beit HaMikdash.
The prophecy of the third temple is at the center of this peace and safety and the ultimate great tribulation that will come upon the entire earth. In 2 Thessalonians 2:4, reaffirming the prophecy in Daniel 9:27 and also reaffirmed by Jesus in Matthew 24, we're told that the Antichrist will take part in the abomination of desolation, and this happens in the third temple. Let no one deceive you by any means, for that day will not come unless the falling away comes first, and the man of sin is revealed, the son of perdition, who opposes and exalts himself above all that is called God or that is worshipped, so that he sits as God in the temple of God, and showing himself that he is God. The third temple cannot be built or purified without the ashes of an unblemished red heifer.
Things are spicing up. You got to look at this Temple Institute latest update regarding the red heifers. This coming Shabbat, we read the third of 4 additional Torah readings read on Shabbat during the month of Adar. Parashat Para, Numbers 19:1-22, the ordinance of the red heifer, whose ashes impart ritual purity of the highest level. Purity from contact with a corpse is of the utmost relevance to the upcoming holiday of Passover. I understand that this is a lot of reading, but we've got to pay attention to these details. In temple times, all who partook of the Passover offering needed to be purified via the ashes of the red heifer. Every pilgrim who came to Jerusalem either needed to arrive in a state of purity or needed to be sprinkled by the ashes of the red heifer before he or she could partake of the Passover offering at the Seder meal on the first night of the Passover. It should be noted that the Torah states that if the majority of Israel is impure and the purifying ashes of the red heifer are not available, the Passover offering should nevertheless be made and eaten as if everyone had attained purity. There's some speculation that the red heifers currently have been disqualified, meaning that they're too old, or maybe they've just gotten sick, or whatever's going on with that, but supposedly the red heifers are disqualified. But I'm seeing some other sources that are saying that there is still one red heifer that is qualified. Now, just in my opinion, it just seems to make sense that why would they let the world know whether or not they have qualified red heifers or when this sacrifice is going to be made? So it just seems more logical that why would they let everyone know what's going to happen when it's just going to add more heat to the tensions in the Middle East? While the Temple Institute is engaged in intensive efforts to raise a suitable red heifer candidate and produce the longed-for ashes even today in a state of ritual impurity, we are obligated to perform the Passover offering. What's interesting is that this new incoming 24th IDF Chief of Staff, General Eyal Zamir, left a very interesting prayer at the Western Wall. Praying at the Western Wall is a tradition by many Jews and rabbis, so that's not anything unusual, but the contents of the letter are very interesting. And here's a quick copy of the letter written in Hebrew. And in case if you didn't know, all the letters or prayers that are left in the Western Wall are collected twice a year, and then they're buried at the Jewish cemetery at the Mount of Olives because these letters are considered direct letters to God. And just for clarity, separate from my own personal opinion or what the Word of God says, I'm just explaining Jewish tradition. So as this former IDF chief was leaving office, this new chief of staff was coming in, and they both said prayers and psalms at the Western Wall. Zamir added the message at the Western Wall where the temple was built and the roots of the Jewish people were established. And this letter, broken down by Israel 365 News, states that, interestingly, through a quirk of Hebrew grammar, the phrase where the temple was built could also be understood as where the temple will be built. And for those who question whether a physical temple will be rebuilt, we're going to look at the Word of God. And after 62 weeks, Messiah shall be cut off, but not for himself. And the people of the lowercase prince who is to come shall destroy the city and the sanctuary. As soon as the 7-year tribulation begins and the rapture of the church happens, the Messiah will be cut off. The grace of God will no longer be available on this world. And the prince, who is the son of perdition, the lawless one, the Antichrist, he will sit in the rebuilt temple, shall destroy the city and the sanctuary. The end of it shall be with a flood until the end of the war of desolations are determined. Then he shall confirm a covenant with many for 1 week. But in the middle of the week, that's in the 3.5-year period, at the middle of the 7-year tribulation, he shall bring an end to sacrifice and offering, and on the wing of abominations shall be one who raises desolate or makes desolate, even until the consummation which is determined is poured out on the desolate. The words of Jesus in Matthew 24:15, therefore when you see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet standing in the holy place, whoever reads this, let him understand. The abomination of desolation that Jesus is referring to is what we just read in Daniel chapter 9. Let no one deceive you by any means, for that day will not come unless the falling away comes first, and the man of sin is revealed, the son of perdition, who opposes and exalts himself above all that is called God or that is worshipped, so that he sits as God in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. Now, just as God limited himself and came to this world in human form, Philippians 2, Jesus became God incarnate, just as Satan, who is the counterfeit of everything good that God has ever done, is also going to empower a human, the Antichrist, in Revelation 13, the first beast, and that first beast is going to sit in this temple.
Right now, in Jerusalem, preparations that would have seemed unthinkable a generation ago are actively underway. Temple furniture has been meticulously reconstructed. Priests from the tribe of Levi are being trained in ancient rituals. Architectural plans have been drawn up. Sacred vessels have been created according to biblical specifications. All that's missing is the right moment to build. And when that moment comes, when the temple is finally reconstructed on the Temple Mount, the countdown to the final fulfillment of Daniel's prophecy begins. What makes this so urgent is that prophecy doesn't always unfold gradually.
Prophecy says, before Christ returns, a third temple must rise in Jerusalem. The Bible warns in the book of Daniel and Revelation that the Antichrist will enter this temple and declare himself as God. For centuries, rebuilding the temple seemed impossible. The original site is one of the most contested places on earth, the Temple Mount. But today, it's no longer just a dream. The Temple Institute in Jerusalem has already recreated sacred artifacts, priest garments, and even the altar all ready for use. new red heifers born in Texas, and being shipped to Jerusalem, a key sign required for temple purification according to Jewish law. Once the temple is built, it will fulfill one of the final prophecies before the Great Tribulation begins, and some believe construction could begin sooner than anyone expects.
You seriously cannot make this up. The timing is so insane. So we have Trump talking about a very big announcement and the Abraham Accords going over to the Middle East. A lot of things going on, talks with Iran and all that, right? Israel and Gaza. And now we got this self-proclaimed Mahdi, the one who is of the religion of peace and light. He is now calling for Arabs to build Jewish temple in Jerusalem and exodus of Palestinians from Gaza. As we can see from this Israel 365 news article, we have this self-proclaimed Mahdi releasing a statement outlining a proposal by him for peace between Palestinians and Israel based on the Arab world joining with Jews in the construction of the third temple in Jerusalem. You cannot make this up. I encourage you to read this article on your own, but I'm just going to bring up some highlights here. So as we know, he is part of the religion of peace and light, okay? So like peace and security and sudden destruction comes upon them like labor pains, and then a light, which is a false light, like Satan or Lucifer comes as an angel of light, okay? So he has presented a compelling vision for lasting peace between Israelis and Palestinians. This initiative calls for a joint effort between the Arabs and Jews to rebuild the temple in Jerusalem. It also calls for the exodus of the Palestinians from Gaza and the creation of a new state headed by a descendant and heir to the prophet Muhammad. Here's another quote by him. This is not just another plea for peace, it is a wake-up call to the world. The ongoing conflict is not just political, it is spiritual. It wounds the legacy of the prophets and dishonors the covenant you were entrusted with. Right here we have another quote by him. They tell you to fight over this mosque. They tell you to fight over the Temple Mount, over Jerusalem. They say the Muslims regard it as one of the holiest sites. They say you must fight and defend it against the Jews who want to build their third temple, the Temple of Solomon, the son of David. As for the temple being built, it will be built. I'm not sure about you guys, but I find the timing of this significant. The rhetoric that he is pushing. Again, he seems like a joke, right? Like nobody takes him serious. But what he is saying is significant. The rhetoric, the agenda. He is pushing for peace between Arabs and Jews. He is talking about the third temple. So again, it's what he is saying and pushing. And especially the timing of him bringing out this statement, which comes about 5-6 days before we have Mr. Golden Dawn going on his trip to the Middle East, where there is a possibility that there might be an announcement about the Abraham Accords. As we can see news like this coming out yesterday, Trump envoy hints of Abraham Accords breakthrough. That breakthrough looks like it might be Saudi Arabia being the next piece of the Abraham Accords puzzle. All at the same exact time, we have U.S.-Israel relations at a crossroads where we have Mr. Golden Dawn's Middle East trip leaves Jerusalem confused. This is because Mr. Golden Dawn is not going to visit Jerusalem during this trip. We also had this news breaking about a month ago where Golden Dawn's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, has this Abraham Accords Institute merge with the Heritage Foundation.